We need to talk about something. There's a crisis happening right now, not in some far-off place, but in our offices, our factories, our workplaces. It's happening every single day, and it's a story that isn't really being told. It's about the real price of the way we work, a price that's paid in human dignity.
Just let that sink in for a second. That's not a line from a script. That's a real person, a manufacturing worker, trying to explain his life. This feeling, this emptiness, it's like a quiet epidemic. It's what happens when you're treated like a tool, a number on a spreadsheet, and then you're supposed to just clock out and magically become a whole person again for your family.
So, let's forget about business school jargon for a minute. This isn't about productivity or profit margins. We're going to treat this like an investigation into a human tragedy, one that plays out in millions of homes night after night.
All right, so let's start with the evidence. Let's look at the real, tangible toll this system takes on people. Not just at work, but maybe even more importantly, what happens when they get home.
Okay, get this story. A guy comes home from a brutal day at the plant. He's so ground down, so full of stress, he doesn't know what kind of person he's bringing home to his family. So he has this ritual. He literally throws his hat through the doorway first. If the hat stays, he knows it's safe to come in. But if it gets thrown back out, he just goes to the bar. His job turned him into someone his own family couldn't stand to be around. That's not a work problem. That's a human crisis.
And look at this. This is what that instability does to a life. This is Ken Coppins. He gets a good job, he and his wife buy a home, they're about to have their first kid, and then, boom, laid off. Just like that. For the next 6 years, his life is this constant cycle of being hired and fired. He talked about the dread and feelings of inadequacy. They had to sell their house at a loss. This is the system just chewing people up and spitting them out.
So, we've seen the human cost. Now let's pan out and look at the crime scene itself. What is the system? This machine that keeps creating these outcomes.
This number, this should honestly stop you in your tracks. A 20% documented spike in heart attacks on Monday mornings. Come on, that's not a coincidence. That is hard evidence. The stress and the dread of just going back to work is a legitimate public health crisis. Our jobs are literally physically breaking our hearts.
And here's the core of the problem. It's this massive hypocrisy. We've all seen the posters, right? We've heard the speeches from the C-suite. Oh, people are our greatest asset. But then you look at the actions. People are treated like functions, headcount, expenses to be cut when the numbers don't look good. The words say one thing, but the machine does another.
And this is a confession from someone who was inside the machine, a former plant manager, just laying it bare. You eat your young. It's a culture of pure survival. It's not about doing a good job, it's about doing whatever it takes not to be the next one out the door. It forces people to turn on each other.
But, every good investigation has a turning point. A moment where a completely new idea shows up and just flips the whole thing on its head. And in this case, that idea is so simple it's almost shocking. So, picture the scene. A company gets bought out. The workers are all packed into a town hall, and the air is thick with tension. They're expecting the worst. More layoffs, more broken promises. So a union guy stands up, he's representing all that fear and distrust, and he asks the new CEO, Bob Chapman, a simple question.
And that's it. That's the answer that changes everything. Chapman doesn't talk about the institution, the union. He goes right to the human being. He's saying, I'm not here to deal with the system. I'm here to deal with you, the person. It completely reframes the entire relationship.
But look, philosophy is just nice words, right? How do you actually make it real? How do you build a system around this idea of actually caring about people? Let's look at the blueprint.
Let's go back to the factory floor and meet Jimmy Hughes. Now, under the old system, Jimmy is a problem. He's labeled lazy, a troublemaker. He's the guy management is wondering if they should fire. He is the poster child for the broken worker.
So instead of firing him, the new leadership did something totally different. They just listened. They asked him what was wrong. And you know what they found? He wasn't lazy, he was bored out of his mind. His machine would run for 45 minutes, and his only job was to stand there and watch it. So they empowered him. They trusted him and his team to figure out a better way, to schedule their own work.
And here it is. Here's the ripple effect. Another worker, after this new culture took hold, said this, "My wife now talks to me more." It's the complete opposite of the man throwing his hat in the door, isn't it? He's not coming home empty anymore. He's coming home feeling valued, and it's literally healing his family. How you lead at work directly impacts how people live at home.
And what about Jimmy, The quote-unquote lazy troublemaker? Well, today he leads a team. He's an innovator. In fact, he's the person they have show customers around the plant. The problem was never Jimmy. The talent was always there, just buried under a system that refused to see him as a person.
So, this brings us to the end of our investigation. When you look at all the evidence, what's the final verdict? What's the one thing that really truly matters? Let me leave you with one last piece of evidence. There's this man who worked for the same company for 32 years, just quietly doing his job day in and day out. And for the very first time, he's publicly recognized for his work.
32 years. Think about that. For over 3 decades, that man came to work wondering if any of it mattered to anyone. The tragedy isn't that it took some complicated program to fix it. The tragedy is that for 32 years, no one just bothered to look him in the eye and say thank you. What you do here matters.
And that's what this all boils down to. This idea of truly human leadership. It's not a business tactic, it's a moral belief. It's the understanding that when you're a leader, you have a genuine responsibility for the lives of the people you lead. Success isn't about the stock price, it's about how you touch those lives.
So the verdict from this investigation is pretty clear. The broken workers, the Monday morning heart attacks, the families being torn apart by stress, this isn't just a business problem. It's a public health crisis that's hiding in plain sight. And the cure isn't some new management fad or piece of software. It's much, much simpler than that. The only cure is to actually care.